Welcome. How's everyone doing? Having fun so far? Awesome. I was pretty impressed with the work you guys just did, so excited to see what we do this afternoon. We're going to kick it off with a little video here, so if you want to...
We love football. The rivalries, the unbelievable plays, the storied tradition, the wins and the losses. Athletes giving everything for the team, leaving it all on the field. It's the players that make the game and the communities that make it whole. Protect them, and you protect it all. Introducing Redell Diamond Technology powered by carbon. Diamond technology replaces the current helmet liner with a 3D printed lattice for advanced impact absorption. Redell uses 3D scanning technology to ensure a precise custom fit for each individual athlete. Combining this with data from on-field impacts, the Carbon Lattice engine automatically designs and simulates over 1,000 options and selects the optimal liner for each athlete. This custom lattice liner further manages both linear and rotational impact energies. Using a highly damping elastomer, these lattice liners are 3D printed with Carbon's revolutionary digital light synthesis, grown from liquid, crafted by light and oxygen.
Our partnership with Carbon and the introduction of Diamond technology underscores Redell's continued drive to deliver innovative, on-field head protection to the game of football and its players.
At Carbon, we believe the obstacle is the way. We believe in the power of using technology to solve real problems. Our platform enables companies like Redell to make products that were never thought possible. We can make the unmakeable. With this partnership, Redell becomes one of the largest users of 3D printers in the world, and we are proud to be at the forefront of digital manufacturing.
Welcome to the next generation of protective gear for football and beyond, for every sport and every activity, allowing athletes to be bold, powerful, and protected. Protect them, and you protect it all.
Awesome. So that's a little hype video, a little introduction to what Carbon does, which I'll get to later on in the talk. But first, how did I get to Carbon? So I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. Put a little map up here in case you didn't know where Nebraska was. Middle of the country, pretty far from California and Silicon Valley where we are now. And growing up, I always wanted to be a vet. I loved animals. These are pictures of me growing up. I thought I'd be a vet, but I realized that being a vet meant I'd have to see sick animals every day, and emotionally I didn't think I could handle that. So at some point that was not an option anymore. And I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I knew I liked math and I liked solving problems. But in high school I also had a bunch of other interests. I liked music, I played soccer, I thought maybe I wanted to be an architect, and I explored kind of all of these without really knowing what I wanted to do. And I didn't even know what computer science was, actually, until I got to college. So you're way ahead of me by just being in this room today, which is pretty cool to see. So the reason I point this out with all these pictures of these other things that I did is twofold. One, you don't have to know what you want to be. I like to say I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So continue exploring all of your passions and all of your interests. Hopefully one of them is STEM, but hopefully you have other interests as well, and continue exploring those. And second, the reason I chose to put these pictures up is there's no archetype of an engineer or of a software engineer. You don't have to look a certain way or be interested in a certain thing to succeed in science and math. I didn't originally go into software engineering right out of school, and I think a little part of that was I didn't think I kind of fit the mold. And I've realized now that there is no mold. So after high school, I went to college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So I left Nebraska and went east to the East Coast before coming out west here. And I was nominated for a scholarship to UNC from my high school called the Moorhead-Cain Scholarship. I almost didn't even apply because I didn't know what it was, but I'm so grateful that I did. The Moorhead-Cain Scholarship not only funded my education at UNC, but it also funded summer experiences. And so the first summer experience was a 3-week outward bound course. So 3 weeks in the wilderness, no phones, no technologies, no showers. We had to bring everything that we ate with us on the boats that we took down the river, and everything that we needed to sleep, carried it all with us for 3 weeks. So this was an incredible experience. It was challenging, but it was super fun. And you'll notice on the top right there, so that's a picture of the toilet we used for 3 weeks. That's not the exact one, but it's one I found on the internet that looked like the one we used. So we were in a pretty fragile ecosystem. This was in Colorado and Utah, down the Green River. So you have to pack out all of your human waste. And there's no bathrooms in the wilderness, right? So you would set up this toilet that we called the groover, because if you sat on it without that seat, you would have grooves on your skin. And we'd have to use that for 3 weeks. And it took a little adjusting to, for sure. At the beginning, people kind of avoided even going to the bathroom because you're in the middle of nowhere using that as your toilet. But it kind of, after this 3-week experience of climbing up mountains and rappelling off these cliffs and using that groover as your restroom, I kind of felt like I could take on anything, right? This was, if I could, kind of a motto of mine and a joke with my family became, if I could poop on the groover, I can do anything. So I came back from this and ended up walking on to the soccer team at UNC. So like I said earlier on, I played soccer all through high school, and part of what I wanted to do in college was play soccer. But UNC is the best women's soccer program in the country. Greats like Mia Hamm played there, and they won many national championships. So when I got this scholarship to go to UNC for school, originally I didn't think I'd be able to play soccer. But after that kind of summer experience and having this confidence that I built up from spending 3 weeks in the wilderness and surviving, coming back alive, I gave it a shot. And I walked onto the team and started out as a manager and a practice player. So I would set up the cones for practice. But I showed up ready every day with my cleats in case they needed someone. I would jump in and play. And my sophomore year, I tried to make the team again, and actually didn't make it. And this was kind of a big failure for me. Kind of one of the first things that I really tried hard, and I spent a lot of time trying to make this team, and I didn't make it my sophomore year. But they wanted me to come back and be a practice player and a manager again. And so I did that because I thought, kind of again, from this experience on my Outward Bound course, I can do this, I belong here, I can make an impact on this team, I just have to keep working and wait for my chance. And so eventually I did make the team, and by junior and senior year, I played in every game. And I think that kind of also, that experience has also helped me in my career now and in the tech industry, especially as a female in computer science and in the software engineering world. It can be maybe intimidating at times or hard, and you have to just kind of keep working and keep going. So that I've taken that on into my career. So at this point, I still didn't really know what computer science was. I'm now a sophomore in college. I knew I liked math. I had a lot of math credits, and I was taking math classes. And my scholarship, again, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year in college, they funded me to go to Peru. So I spent my summer between freshman and sophomore year in Peru volunteering with this company called One Laptop Per Child. So if you've heard of it, it's these green and white little laptops here that kind of look like Fisher-Price toys. They're under $200, I think, per laptop. And the mission of One Laptop Per Child really resonated with me. They're trying to spread access to education and use technology as this tool to change the world and make the world a better place. So I went there trying to help teach the teachers how to use these laptops as a tool and help teach the students how to use them to motivate and inspire them to learn. While this trip was amazing, every step along the way, One Laptop Per Child's kind of execution was a little bit off. It was clear that the people who wrote the software weren't kids, didn't interact with kids, didn't speak Spanish as their native language, right? So the product, I thought, could be improved. And this kind of motivated me to go into what I started out in, which was product management. So I came back to UNC and started taking computer science classes and set my sights on going to a company where I could learn how to make good products that scaled globally so that I could have an impact with those products to solve real problems. So I decided I'd try to get an internship at Google. So between my junior and senior year, I interned at Google out here in Mountain View. So I came out to California, to the West Coast, and I interned as a product manager. So what a product manager does is, at least at Google, is kind of work cross-functionally with the software engineers, with the designers, with user experience researchers, and tries to figure out what products we should build and why. What problem are we solving, and how do we do that? So my first year at Google, I worked on Google Chrome, the browser, if any of you use that. And the second year, I worked on YouTube Music. So trying to make it easier for you guys to find the songs you want to listen to and the music videos you want to watch on YouTube. So those were really fun products, and I learned a lot from a lot of amazing people at Google. But I kind of missed, I saw some of you as you're building these breadboards and physically putting things together, and then your reaction when the light turned on. I kind of missed that feeling. So as a product manager, I wasn't actually writing code, and I was a little bit removed from the building, kind of the hands-on building things. So when I started looking for new opportunities, and my kind of criteria where I want to get back into the building, maybe transition into software engineering, and I also want to have a bigger impact in the world and be able to move faster and learn more and learn faster. So I left Google and I joined Carbon. Shirt I'm wearing here and the hype video we played at the beginning. So now I'm a software engineer at Carbon. And Carbon is a really cool company based here in Redwood City that builds 3D printers. So how many of you have used a 3D printer before or seen one? Wow, a lot. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm guessing that the 3D printers you used were what we call FDM machines, where kind of like a hot glue gun, and there's, yeah, I see some heads shaking. There's a spool of material, and the gun moves around, and it melts the solid into a liquid, and then it hardens in the shape where you place that material. So our printers are a little bit different. So here's a slide of our different hardware. So our first printer that we made is all the way over here on the right. We made the printer, the footprint's the same, but if you notice the platform up top is a little bit bigger on that second one. Then we built what we call the smart part washer. This is a glorified washing machine that you can put your printed part in to clean it. And then we've built what we call our L printer, so this really big one over here. And that was built to print shoes, so midsoles for Adidas. So actually, I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm wearing some cool Adidas shoes here. Adidas uses our technology to print this part of the shoe, which is one of our biggest partnerships and a pretty cool one that we get to wear around. So that last printer there was originally designed for that. So the way our printer works is a little bit different, like I said, than probably the printers you've used maybe in your schools or hack spaces. The way it works is there's a light engine, a light projector on the bottom of the printer. So think like this light projector that's shining the screens on this image. That's underneath the printer. And then there's this bowl with a glass bottom that we fill with liquid resin. And the projector shines light at a certain UV wavelength. And everywhere that UV wavelength shines through the glass and hits the liquid turns to solid. And then the platform, it moves down and it pulls up as we continually shine images underneath, and you just kind of grow your part out of the liquid like that, kind of like Terminator 2, if any of you have seen that movie. So Carbon's a really exciting place, and again, as someone who, going back to kind of my high school days, has many interests and sometimes doesn't like to choose what I'm going to work on and wants to kind of explore lots of things, our technology can really have an impact in a lot of different industries, which is really exciting. So, for example, in the consumer space, like with these shoes or with the Redell football helmet that we talked about earlier. In the automotive space, industrial, microelectronics, and the healthcare space. The dental space is huge. If any of you have had Invisalign or any of the you have a clear retainer you have to wear at night, the way those are made is they print a mold of your teeth, and then they melt that clear plastic over the mold of your teeth. So companies are using our printers to print those molds of your teeth, and they can print them faster and more accurately than they could before our technology. So it's really fun, especially as a software engineer, to work at a place where we also work with hardware, and our hardware makes more hardware. We make physical parts that can be applied to so many different industries and problems, and help solve problems across a wide spectrum. So what do I do at Carbon? So I'm a software engineer, like I said. So I helped build the user interface that you work on to print a part. So say I wanted to print this pug here. You upload your model to the web app, and we visualize the model. We let you select what resin you're going to print it in, and kind of do all the preparation to get a print. Another thing our software has to do is take that 3D model and turn it into the images that the projector displays. So think of a loaf of bread, and think of like a loaf of sliced bread, right? So each slice of bread is kind of the image that we would display to build up that full loaf of 3D physical bread. So this is a video of the slices of this pug. So starting at the feet, now it's going up his legs. Now you get a little bit of his stomach. Now we're going through the body, and eventually you'll kind of get to see a little of its head forming, and then we're not quite at its head yet. But so my team writes the software to do this, to take your 3D models and turn them into these 2D images that we then display on the light engine. So that's its tail on the back there now, and its ears and head, and now it's going up to the top. So we turn your 3D image or your 3D model into these 2D images, and then we control everything with the printer. So when the light engine turns on, when the motor moves, as well as sensing a lot of information about your printer to help us debug if we have problems. So if prints don't work, we have a lot of data from our printer, including the humidity and the temperature inside the machine, and all this other data that helps us figure out and troubleshoot and make our prints even better. So on top of getting to work on really cool technology and solve really interesting problems, our culture at Carbon is really awesome. And I think a lot of companies where you can work as a software engineer, I would say, have a similar culture. So I didn't become a vet, but I do bring my dog to work every day. So this is my rescue dog, Sully, and she's in some ways kind of a company mascot. She comes every day and mostly just sleeps. But if I'm ever stuck debugging and I can't figure out a problem, I can take her out on a 5-10 minute walk and come back, and usually the problem's a lot easier after that. And yeah, the next awesome thing about working at Carbon is my team. So this is a little GIF. I'm the one in the banana suit. A little GIF of my team after a team offsite. We went to one of those escape the room puzzle rooms, if you've ever done that. Yeah, exactly. We all love puzzles, so that's what we chose to do. But one thing, and I put this slide on here again because my team at Carbon is awesome, and I feel lucky to have them. But one reason I think I became a PM originally before becoming a software engineer was that I was worried I'd be sitting alone at my computer writing code all day as a software engineer. And I like interacting with people and being collaborative, that kind of team environment from my soccer days. It turns out I was really wrong about that. So being a software engineer is not sitting alone at your computer all day. You interact with the team of software engineers. You interact with people on other teams. I have meetings with hardware engineers and material engineers and our customer support folks. So it really is a collaborative, fun and engaging process that I misunderstood before I got into the industry. Last but not least here in terms of the culture, this is a quote: "We learn the most from those we have the least in common with," from Jody Simone, the CEO at Carbon. And Carbon is a company that values diversity and has come forward and made public statements about equal pay and things like that, and everybody having a voice at the table. So I feel grateful that I get to work at a company that values this, but it's an awesome thing that a lot of companies kind of in this industry are pushing towards, and especially as a woman in computer science, we can help push this way and get more women in and make this a more diverse field. So in summary, stay curious. You don't have to know what you want to do. I still don't know what I want to do. But if you're curious and you want to learn, you'll have an interesting path and a lot of fun along the way. You belong. You might not think you do, or you might not think you're capable of whatever is required to be there, but you're capable of so much more than you think you are. And kind of, again, that outward bound experience and walking on the soccer team, kind of my examples of proving that to myself, but I also still continuously have to remind myself of that. And I think it's a good thing to remind yourself that you belong and you're really capable of more than you might think. Be grateful. Again, I didn't get here by myself. I wouldn't be here without my family's support. That's my scholarship at UNC and people at Carbon taking a chance on me. I had never been a software engineer before outside of school. So be grateful for the people that have helped you, and someday, if hopefully you're in my shoes and you're able to help provide those opportunities for other people. And last but not least, technology is really cool. I get to work at a company where I write software for hardware that makes other hardware, and really just the limits of what you can make are the limits of your own creativity and imagination. So thank you. Questions?
Awesome. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, and we'll bring a mic around.
I also have some parts I can pass around.
When you went on that thing in the wilderness,
Yeah.
did you guys shower? Where did you guys?
Did you guys jump in the water?
Yeah. Here, you want to pass some of these around while you can play with these. That's just a lattice structure. So yeah, it's from the printer. So here. So all these parts I'm printing around, we printed, or we printed part of them. And it's an elastomeric material, and it can be used for lots of different things. To answer your question, no and yes, we jumped in the river. That was our shower. And we did, we had some kind of all-purpose soap-like thing, biodegradable soap-like thing. But that was about it. So yeah, we were pretty stinky by the end. I think I took a 45-minute shower when I got to the hotel at the end of the trip.
Must have felt nice.
Definitely.
Questions?
Yeah?
Come on.
Okay, has one.
Leadership here, folks.
I don't bite.
So when you started Carbon, I'm speaking into the mic. Was it, what's the word? Was it hard? You know how you said you felt like you didn't belong? Did you feel like that when you first came to Carbon?
Yeah, great question. So it definitely was hard. Starting out at Carbon as a software engineer, right? There was this notion of, can I really do this? Am I a software engineer? I've never been a software engineer, right? What does that even mean? So I would say it was hard. Luckily, the people around me were great. They were very supportive, and I was never made to feel like I didn't belong. Once I was there, it was all coming from internal, right? So I had to get over that. And there's a name for kind of that. It's called imposter syndrome, is a word that gets thrown out, where you don't think you can do it, but once you get over that and you prove to yourself, oh, I can do this. This really isn't that hard. Then it becomes a lot easier. Yeah. grab the mic.
What's the biggest project you've worked on other than the helmet?
The biggest project in terms of part that we made, or software that I wrote?
Software
That I wrote. So when I first started, the whole company was only about 30 people. So our software engineering team was only 5 people, maybe 4 or 5. And we had kind of our software architect. He was a principal engineer at Google before, which is the highest level you can be. He was very familiar with kind of databases, distributed systems, kind of low-level C++ programming. He had no idea how to build a website. So he was like, I'll do all of this. You go figure out how to build the user experience, and we'll learn that part together. So kind of to her previous question, like, was it hard? On top of not really knowing if I could do it, my first task was like the sole owner of the whole web app that you upload your parts and interact with the printer. So that was a little scary, but it was also super fun, and I got to use kind of that product management side that I had and that I still enjoy doing, and kind of figure out what should that product be and then build it. That's probably kind of the biggest project I've worked on. I still work on that interface, but now we have more people to help me, and I also work on other things as I have time. Yeah?
There was something I forgot to ask you.
Okay.
And when you were talking, I was like really confused. You know how you said you worked on like the music at Google?
Yeah.
Are you telling me YouTube is Google?
Yeah. Google owns YouTube.
Bro,
Yeah.
this is an issue.
Yeah, I guess so. Guess it just blew some minds.
Why? How?
She has a question.
Does anyone have any other questions for Becca?
Any other questions? No one over here. Oh, do you have a question?
What was your favorite subject in school?
Good question. I've always loved math. I would say like in middle school and high school, my favorite subject was definitely math. Finding creative ways to solve problems and solving problems faster or easier was always a fun challenge for me. Like I said earlier, I didn't know what computer science was, so I didn't find that until college. And that was kind of a cool way for me to apply the things I liked about math, because I always liked math, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And when I found computer science, it was like, oh, I can build things and kind of unlock all these cool things with this interest in math. But at the same time, I also loved, band and show choir and architecture. I never really loved English. That was probably my least favorite class. But yeah, more questions. Wait, there's someone up here who didn't ask a
I think
question
someone
yet.
in blue over there in the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you, and then you.
Did you face any like discrimination or like not, or was it all support at Google and Carbon?
Yeah, good question. I would say I've been pretty lucky, and I haven't experienced any overt discrimination. Both Google and Carbon are pretty forward-thinking companies that try to, really, push equality and all of those things. I think, so while not having any overt discrimination, there are still times where I'll be in a room and I'll look in a meeting and I look around and, there's 10 guys and me. So I sometimes kind of face that, I would say. I had an older brother, and I always wanted to do everything he did, and I always hung out with him and all his guy friends. So I feel fairly comfortable, I would say, in that environment. But I want to change it. So I have a female intern from Duke this summer that's going to work for me, and I come talk at events like this because the more women we can get interested in STEM and get in through the door, then hopefully someday that'll be an even number and we don't even really have to have these conversations. Great question, though. Yeah, up there, and then we'll come back down here. Do you have a question?
What math classes did you take that steered you towards computer science?
Which math classes did I take? I'm not sure there were specific ones that steered me towards computer science. I think in middle school, high school, your path is fairly set for you. But one thing I did do, and I didn't have a way to weave it into the conversation, it was in middle school. I was part of a math club. It was called Math Counts, and we did math competitions. And that was really fun because we would do, kind of outside of the structured classroom environment, and you would meet after school and solve these kind of interesting problems that weren't clear, this is this math problem from my textbook. It was, a more complicated word problem where you had to figure out, where do I even start, and how do I kind of solve this problem and break it up?
But were there any topics that helped you in computer science?
I'm not sure if there's a specific class that I would say to take or something like that for computer science. I think in general it's problem solving and kind of a way to think and a way to see the world. So instead of when you run into a dead end, you're building these breadboards and your light doesn't turn on. Instead of just saying, oh, it's broken, my light doesn't turn on. Okay, well, what could be broken? Maybe the light's broken. Let's isolate that problem. Maybe this cord's broken. Let's isolate that. Maybe my code's broken. Let's try to figure out how can we prove to ourselves that the code works. So kind of that problem-solving mindset. And kind of, if you run into a problem that you can't solve, okay, let's get creative. How do we reframe this problem and do it another way? Here, you want to pass? Oh yeah, wait. I said you were next. You can be after him.
So, do you help Nike too?
Do I help Nike too? We don't help Nike as well right now. But that is an interesting question. So we build the technology, the 3D printers and the resins. We actually have material scientists in-house as well, and the software. But then we lease our machines to other companies. So we are willing to work with most any company. The way that our deal with Adidas is structured, though, Adidas does have the rights to make athletic footwear with our machines. So no other company could make specifically running athletic footwear. But yeah. Down here.
Is there any advice you would give your middle school self?
Any advice I would give my middle school self? One thing I'd say would be to just try all the things that you think you might be interested. Or even if you don't know, maybe you don't even think you'd like it, but your friend's doing theater and try it. You don't know, I think you don't really know what you like until you try it. And middle school and high school is such a good time to be able to try all those things and kind of learn about the world and learn about you, learn about what you like. And I think just on top of that, it might seem scary. Middle school and high school, there's some hard times. You might feel you aren't good enough to be on the team or to do whatever, but go for it. There's really not a lot to lose. And once you kind of grow up a little and get older, you realize that the things that seemed like really big life-ending things in middle school, you don't even really remember them. So take a shot. Yeah.
What did you specifically major in college?
I majored in computer science, and I minored in entrepreneurship. Yeah, good question. I should have said that. But I didn't choose my major until sophomore year, because I didn't really know.
Do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets? That's a really good question. I would say no. There's one. I try to live my life where I don't have regrets, even if maybe I could have made a different decision somewhere along the line. Like kind of live in the present and be grateful for what I have. There's one I wouldn't call it a regret, but I since I walked onto the team and I didn't really make it until my junior year, I had more eligibility. So one option was staying another year, playing soccer and getting my master's. But I also had this Google offer, and they expected me to start in September. In hindsight, now being on the other side and seeing how hard it is to hire and all these things, they would have let me defer a year and go play soccer again and get my master's. But I didn't know I could ask that. And the soccer team won the national championship that year. So I flew down into San Diego to cheer them on, but I was employed at Google and not there. So that's one thing that sometimes I say, oh, it would have been really awesome to do that. But at the same time, I was learning cool things and doing cool things at Google. And I wouldn't say I regret it, but that's one of those, it would have been cool.
Awesome. We have time for one more question.
Someone who hasn't asked one yet?
All right. Well, if we don't have another question.
Nope.
What does a typical day at work happen for you? I mean, because just to learn the new technology, you didn't know how to do this 3D printer. How much time is learning? How much time is whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say all the time is learning. I'm always learning, which is part of why I love being a software engineer and working in that role. It's hard to describe a typical day at work. No 2 days are really the same. I'd say I spend not that much time in meetings, which I like. As a PM, I spent almost my whole day in meetings. So I have a lot fewer meetings nowadays, but I will occasionally have a team meeting so that we can kind of spread information amongst the company and know what everybody's working on and what the most important things are. A good amount of my time is spent in front of my computer. A mix of that is writing my own code and reviewing other people's code. So again, that kind of fear that I had of it being a very isolating experience, all the code that you write as a software engineer in a production setting gets reviewed by your teammates. And so that process happens, it can happen all digitally, but it often happens with in-person communications. Why did you choose to implement it this way? What design trade-offs did you think? Did you think about this? We need to make this better. So I'd say like about half my day is that, and then half my day is writing code with the intermittent meetings and taking my dog out and those kind of things. So I write mostly in JavaScript with a little bit of C++. Our main stack is JavaScript, with some Ruby on Rails, C++, and then tools are in Python. So there's some Python in there too. But in general, I think someone asked what you learned or what the actual language that you know if you do want to be a software engineer. Languages aren't so much important as the core computer science theory, and again, learning quickly and knowing how to think like an engineer. You can pick up languages. So I didn't do any JavaScript in college, really, but that's what you build web apps in, and when I started, that's what I was told to go do, so I learned it as I went. And even since I started at Carbon, I've been there 4.5 years now, the language JavaScript has changed in time, and now we're writing in TypeScript, which is a type-safe version of JavaScript that didn't even really exist when I started. So the field moves so quickly that you're always learning, which is the fun part. But it's less about like what you know and how can you learn and move quickly and adapt. Do we have time?
We have time for that one more question.
When you were doing the science for your football helmet with all the computer parts protected, did you use HTML to build the diagram and implement codes?
Yeah, so I use HTML to build kind of the web app where you upload your part and view it and that kind of stuff. I don't think we used HTML for designing those pads. There's not really a pretty UI for that yet. It's more of like a command line tool written in, I think, C++. So very kind of math heavy, figuring out the forces on the parts of all these different mesh lattices. So it's kind of done right now on a pretty back-endy, not really a UI to it. When we kind of generalize, so right now we're still pretty early in this Redell project. When we generalize that technology and go to making helmets for all those different industries and companies, we'll have to use HTML and JavaScript to build a more friendly interface for those companies to go through that design process. But I do use some HTML in my day-to-day job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Becca.
Thank you.
I have one last question for you before we completely. Yeah. So if you could just, if you had one piece of advice to give our group today, what would that piece of advice be?
One piece of advice. I'd say kind of what I already said. Like, just go for it. Try new things and be curious and have fun.